My name is Dr. Alex Kaur, and I'm the son of two Holocaust survivors. One of them, as you can see, was not a big IU basketball or Purdue football fan, so I apologize. The life of my mother could best be summarized using 5 simple words. And you might ask, how could 5 so seemingly different words result in a tipping point? You might ask, how could 5 so seemingly different words offer a path to fulfillment, a clear vision, and happiness? At the age of 10, my mom and my mom's twin, Miriam, were identical twins, of course, and they were part of Dr. Mengele's medical experiments at Auschwitz. If one twin died during the experiments, the other twin was killed with an injection to the heart. Both survived. At the age of 50, my mom led the biggest manhunt in history to find that very same Nazi doctor. At the age of 61, my mom forgave Dr. Mengele and the Nazis, and this resulted in her path to healing. As it were, a lot of people know and remember my mom for that word, forgiveness. She's probably best remembered for that, and most likely also vilified for that word. In 1987, my mom was looking for answers. And sometimes the world didn't really offer her a lot of answers. And she began lecturing about her experiences after watching the miniseries Holocaust on NBC. She found out that the world wanted to hear her story, and this gave her a channel, a way to vent her anger and her torment. Unfortunately, around this time, my aunt, my mom's twin, began to have health problems. And then in 1984, my mom and my aunt founded a Mengele Twins organization, Candles, Children of Auschwitz Nazi Deadly Lab Experiment Survivors. They were able to find 122 sets of Mengele twins in 10 countries and 4 continents. This allowed my mom and the other twins credibility and a platform, and the hunt was on, the search was on. Unfortunately, around the same time, I should say, in 1984, my mom went to Auschwitz for the first time since her liberation. And this was a difficult time, but the world was listening. And then about a year later, in 1985, the hunt for Mengele took a turn. And unfortunately for the twins, the remains of Dr. Mengele were found in Embu, Brazil, in a very superficial grave site. And my mom's anger intensified. Angry outbursts became commonplace. In 1986, at the Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C., during a Holocaust Remembrance event, my mom held up a sign supporting legislation that would help other Mengele twins. She was arrested and roughed up a bit. Let's watch a video from that day.
It affects the killers as well.
This event was a turning point for my mom. Articles were written that mocked her as a crazed Holocaust survivor and condemned her behavior. She was at the bottom. Around the same time, 1987 to be specific, my aunt's health worsened. My mom donated one of her kidneys to my aunt. They were an identical match to save her life. This was the same year that I was treated successfully for cancer. My mom's life was in chaos. And then unfortunately in 1993, my aunt died. My mom's battle to save her sister's life had been lost, unfortunately. So my mom was looking for answers and really was lacking focus in her life. And then she got a strange phone call. Dr. Mahalchik from Boston, Massachusetts said, "Eva, I hear you like to lecture to doctors. We have a medical ethics conference here in Boston in a couple of months. Maybe you want to come here and lecture about your experiences." And my mom said, "Oh, I love to lecture to doctors." And then he said something strange. He said, "Eva, maybe you could find one of those Nazi doctors and bring him to the meeting." My mom said, "What? Where do you think I can find one of those guys, Dr. Mahalchik? The last time I looked, they were not advertising in the yellow pages." But my mom remembered that the last project that my mom and my aunt worked on included a Nazi doctor, Dr. Hans Munch, who was cleared of all charges at Auschwitz. She contacted Dr. Munch in Germany, hoping that he would come to Boston with her to the meeting. The response was, "He's not coming to Boston. If you want an interview, you got to come to Germany." My mom was afraid and scared. So a Dutch TV crew accompanied my mom to Germany a couple months later. The first question my mom asked Dr. Munch was, "Dr. Munch, I'm trying to help the other Mengele twins. Do you know anything about Dr. Mengele's experiments?" He said, "Eva, I don't know anything about the experiments. He kept everything to himself. But you know, I have nightmares." My mom said, "You have nightmares? What do you mean? I thought we were the ones with the nightmares." "Well, no, I think about the gas chambers." He went on to describe the gas chambers in great detail. And my mom said, "Dr. Munch, in January of 1995, we're going back to Auschwitz for the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. What you just told me, the world needs to know. Would you come with us to Auschwitz to tell the world what you just told me?" With no hesitation, he said yes. When my mom came back to Terre Haute, she said, "Alex, yeah, Dr. Munch didn't know anything about the experiments, but he's coming with us to Auschwitz in January of 1995 to tell the world his story. But now I need to thank him. How do you thank a Nazi doctor?" So my mom went to the local Hallmark store in Terre Haute looking for a thank you card for a Nazi doctor. She went to the local liquor store. Nothing seemed appropriate. Then after months and months and months of soul searching, she said, "Alex, I figured it out. I'm going to thank him in my name only by forgiving him for being a Nazi. This is the highest honor I could give another human being." So she wrote a letter of forgiveness. And she wanted to make sure that she didn't have any spelling mistakes. English was her fifth language, so it was sometimes difficult. So she went to her local professor at Eastern Illinois University, Dr. Kaufman, and said, "Dr. Kaufman, I need you to read this document because I want to make sure there are no mistakes." So Dr. Kaufman read the document and said, "Eva, you don't have any mistakes, but I think you're forgiving the wrong guy." "No, I want to give Dr. Munch a gift, and that gift is that I want to thank him, and I want to thank him by forgiving him my name only." So as you can see from this picture, January 27th, 1995, Dr. Munch does indeed tell the world his story, talks about the gas chambers, talks about the operation of the camp, and my mom then gave him that gift. She thanked him by forgiving him in her name only. But what is forgiveness? My mom would tell you that forgiveness is not forgetting. In fact, the memories that she had strengthened her urge to tell her story and to have these type of responses. Is forgiving condoning these evil deeds? My mom would say justice is completely separate from forgiveness. Is forgiveness for the perpetrator? My mom would say no. It's to empower the victim, to give them strength. Is forgiveness, is it in my name only? Of course, my mom would say that it's in her name only because you can only forgive what was done to you or me. What my mom never realized in 1995 was the impact that she would have on so many people, not only in Indiana, but throughout the world. And once my mom had this awareness, she realized that forgiveness was like the miracle of medicine. It didn't cost anything. You didn't have to have a copay. You didn't need a prescription. And if you didn't like the way it made you feel, you could be angry again. You can give it back. So, ultimately, my mom was able to do this and give strength to so many people. What I'd like to do now is chronicle 4 stories that I think will illustrate to you the power of forgiveness and how important it is for everyone in this room to consider this. So I'm going to take you to 2014, the selection platform at Auschwitz, where my mom last saw her parents and her 2 sisters. She was telling our Candles Holocaust Museum group her story of separation. And several young schoolgirls circled my mom, trying to listen to see what she was talking about. And somebody in her group said, "Oh, you could come closer." And once these schoolgirls from Germany, realized she was a survivor, they said, "Oh, no, we shouldn't. We're German." Let me repeat that. They said, "Oh, no, we shouldn't. We're German." Once they were aware that it was okay to come closer, they sobbed silently, listened to every word my mom said, and then once my mom was done with her talk to our group, she turned to these girls and said, "Look, you shouldn't be crying. You have no responsibility for what happened to me in 1944 and 45. Your responsibility lay with the future. You need to make sure that these atrocities never happen again." One of the girls that night wrote this blog, which I think is important. It was the most impressive and emotional experience I've ever had or could have experienced. Hearing from such a person that she doesn't blame us at all and calls us strong as we deal with the dark chapter is a feeling that I can't put in the words. So this experience for these girls was life-changing, but actually was very healing for my mother because she knew she was making a difference. Let's go to the second story. Karen Jungblut, of German descent, was part of the USC Shoah Foundation Dimensions and Testimony. USC Shoah Foundation selected 13 Holocaust survivors to be part of the initial holograms, and my mom was selected. So Karen was part of the team. She was in charge of global initiatives for the USC Shoah Foundation. And during breaks between tapings, my mom would sit with Karen and talk about Karen's German heritage, her family's ties to Nazism. And Karen later said that this reaction, my mom's loving and forgiving reaction, played such a big impact on her. Let's listen to Karen tell her story.
And then have Eva, our survivor, tell you that, oh my God, forgive you, or even say you have nothing to be forgiven about because you weren't there, is extremely powerful. It's almost like having had a chance to work with her gave me a chance to do something about my past.
So obviously this meant the world to Karen, and it appeared that my mom had helped her free her from her guilt from her German heritage. It was a true turning point. And so let's talk about 2 other people, Dylan Parent and Katrina Winsett. Dylan, a practicing Catholic, was looking for a forgiveness role model. She was impressed with my mom's steadfastness, assertiveness, and she never really understood that forgiveness was something that she could bestow upon herself or somebody else. Katrina had known my mom since she was 11. By the time she was 15, she was a troubled child, troubled youth, had considered suicide, and needed focus in her life. After they met my mom, both girls realized that my mom had survived a terrible Holocaust, losing her family, and yet she still turned out pretty good. And they could too. Let's listen to the 2 of them.
Eva gave me forgiveness as an option, as a path that I could take as a method of healing. And it was something that I thought was completely out of my power and out of my control and completely unattainable.
And then she said, forgive, not for them, but for you. And it made all the difference. Just forgiving, like all this weight on my shoulders just went away. And she did that for me, and it's the biggest thing that anyone's ever done.
So Katrina and Dylan are very happy and healthy. They credit my mom's concept of forgiveness with saving their lives. Both were actually, I should say, they were both victims of abuse. And so ultimately, my mom was able to regain the strength by getting rid of the torment and anger in her life by forgiveness. But really, it was not easy. She paid a huge price. People thought it was a gimmick. It wasn't a gimmick. It was difficult. It took 50 years of pain and anger to get to this point. It took time. And it was probably the hardest thing my mom ever did. And probably the hardest thing any of you may have to do. But she knew with every fiber of her being that it was the right thing to do. She wanted to rid herself of the pain caused by other people. So I ask you, I emphatically tell you, first of all, that forgiveness saved my mom's life, and it may save your life too. So I don't know who you're thinking about, but hopefully you're thinking about somebody that you should forgive. A brother, a sister, a coworker, somebody that you need to forgive. 6 years ago, my mom was on the stage. So, she was on the stage. In my mom's memory, I urge you to activate your strength, find your moment, be more forgiving, and change the world. In your program, in the back page, if you feel so moved, I urge you to write down the name of somebody you should forgive. It may change their life. It may change yours. Thank you.